credential request form late last week. If you haven't got it, fill out the request form and we'll get credentials going. And also, I'll be sending out links to the neutral site game credential requests. And then last, remember this Friday is the Hawkeyes from downtown. And use your outside voice for questions today, and we go for there. Questions for Coach?
So, Drew Felwell, Adam Scobie, Hawkeye. Drew Felwell, you brought him in with this experience to really bolster the backcourt. What have you seen from him so far? Have you gotten what you've expected out of him?
Yeah, Drew's been great. Really a special young man, very mature, competes. He and Brock have been going at it, and that's been good for both of them. It's been good for the team. As I've said before, they can play together, which is important. And you're right, it bolsters our backcourt in a number of different ways, not the least of which is experience.
Guys maintaining a team culture, is it important just to find the right fit for the program, and is it just about leaders stepping up, or how do you kind of maintain the culture in an era where guys are free agents and guys are kind of moving around?
I think that's the most critical thing. I still want to build a program. I still want to get guys that are really good players and develop them. I mean, I think you look particularly at our sophomore class. Obviously, we know what Owen did, but I'm talking about Brock, Price, Lodgy. They were both real. All three of them were really good last year. But they had an off season, a summer, a fall, a number of cycles in the weight room, and all three of them have really elevated their games. And that's what building a program is. And not feeling like you have to go get 8 or 9 guys. We got 2 that we felt fit our culture and fit our needs positionally, because we knew what we had coming back, and that was established the day after the Utah game. Okay, who's coming back? So now we know who's coming back, and we know what we need. We knew what we had coming in the freshman class. We're excited about those guys, and that's how we're going to continue to try to do it.
Can you discuss the competition at the 4 spot right now, and what's standing out about those guys?
Well, all the guys that are, competing for playing time there, they're all really good and they're all different. Elijah, Cooper, Sadu. But again, all 3 of them, they're not 4 men. They can play the 4 spot, they can play the 3 spot, they can play the 5 spot. Lodgy maybe more 4-5. Coop and Sado maybe more 3-4, but I would be comfortable playing Sado in the backcourt. Same thing with Coop. So somebody's going to start there, but there's going to be a lot of different guys there.
Here this offseason, you made a concerted effort to add more athleticism, at least based on the personnel you brought in. Would you agree with that, or did that just kind of happen, materialize?
We're just trying to get good players. And, we were very excited about Coop and Chris. We needed to address the point guard position without question. And then we felt like we needed another front court guy.
His attitude, the way he's doing.
Well, Payton's attitude has always been fabulous. It's never going to be anything other than that. I do think, in response to your question, while he was also a leader last year, I think he views himself as the guy that is going to be the voice in the locker room, the voice on the bench, the voice on the road. And I'm very impressed with what he learned going through the NBA draft process and his attitude upon return and how it relates to his teammates has been, quite frankly, what I would have expected from him. When he made the decision to come back, he made it for that reason. And I'm incredibly proud of him and very thankful, and so are his teammates.
Were you ever thinking he was going during that process?
Well, anytime somebody goes through the process, that's a distinct possibility, right? Remember Joe Wieskamp? We always talk about him. He had the option to come back. He shot 7 for 8 in the first competitive game at the Combine. He also measured well. I mean, there were a number of things that happened in a positive way. And then he had a solid offer on the table, so then he was gone. Payton also had solid offers on the table, but none that I think would have drawn him away from this program or this opportunity to do something special, and then also, as I've said many times, bet on himself to move into the first round.
What have you seen in his game and just what he's been able to learn from that experience?
Well, he's always been a guy that moves incredibly well without the ball. He's sort of nonstop motion. He sprints the floor in transition. You know, he really works hard defensively. He rebounds well. So he tries to impact the game in a number of different ways. We saw him get a triple-double last year. So I do think he's making a concerted effort to sort of be that guy. He's always been a great shooter. When he was 6th man of the year in the league, you know, he was really special with his three-point shooting in particular, but he knows in order to make the NBA, in order to help this team be what it could be, we need him to be an all-league player in all facets, and that's what he's going to be.
Frank, when it comes to Owen Freeman, I mean, he's always spoken to us that he's a calm, a very fiery player. When you go into a season, sophomore season after the freshman year he had, how important is it that you already have a guy that's mature beyond his years when you talk about improvement-driven mindset? Just how have you kind of seen him take advantage of that for the last few months?
The thing about Owen is he's a special young guy in so many different ways, and he's incredibly talented, but he also recognizes that there's room for growth and wants to get better. So for him, it started in the weight room, but then it also, you know, morphed into doing more off the bounce, doing more from the perimeter as a shooter. You know, I used to tell him, even when he was in high school, to look for his shot more. Flash to the high post, catch, turn, and face, and shoot it. You know, shoot the foul line jumper. That sets up your shot fake drive, because he's a shot fake drive, one dribble dunk guy from there. So he really worked hard on his shot on his own time. I mean, he worked very closely with Kirk Spearall, just on their own. And then, of course, with our coaches as well. But he got it in this summer. And you're seeing a dramatic difference, because a lot of times it's not necessarily form or technique. It's confidence. And then knowing that your coach has the confidence in you to shoot the ball. He's not going to encourage you to shoot the ball, then you shoot and miss, then he tells you not to shoot. Well, you're never going to be a good shooter. So I've been encouraging him since he was 15 years old. And you'll see a guy with a more complete game this year and be even more dominant.
Fran, heard a little bit about Price really taking his game to that next level this summer. I guess where did that start? How has it reached that?
It sort of started towards the end of last season when he made a concerted effort. From an attitude perspective, he was going to be more physical. He was going to be more aggressive. You know, a lot of times a guy comes in, he's a freshman, he's coming off the bench. He wants to be solid, and we need solid. We don't need mistake makers. But in Price's case, there was so much more in his game than we were seeing in the beginning, and you started to see it manifest itself at the end of the year. Again, through the spring, summer, and fall. He also got in the weight room, so he's put on probably 12 pounds of muscle. So he's way more physical. He's always had great length. He's always been an underrated defender with his length, and he'll rebound his position well. But at the end of the day, I mean, he's just really shooting the ball at an incredibly high clip on a consistent basis. Because we stat everything from every 5-on-5 situation, every practice. So from the second week of June into October, and he's killing it. Yeah.
Brock was Mr. Basketball all life. His numbers were impressive, but I think his intangibles, his leadership almost stood out more than anything. What have you seen with him with that when it comes to those type of things and the leadership? Is that something that he can build on into the summer?
You're right. He's always had that in him. That's always been part of who he is. It's one of the reasons why they won the state championship, while he was Mr. Basketball. And he was the same guy last year. It's just harder when you're coming off the bench. So he's going to be playing a lot more this year. And he is not afraid to talk to his teammates, be direct. Sometimes he can be a little too tough, but everybody respects that about him because that's how he's wired. And he's the toughest guy, as tough a guy as I've ever coached. And that's why we recruited him. That's why we love him. Well, he's also improved his body. He's really defensively been way more physical. He's stronger, but he's shooting the ball extremely well. You know, he changed his shot a little bit, just moved it up a little bit, nothing major, and he's shooting with great confidence.
How you feel about the physicality and competition?
Yeah, the 5 spot is in great shape. You know, it starts with Owen, and you know, Lodgy, as I said, can play with Owen at the 4-5. We can put Lodgy at the 5, but you know, you're talking about 2 seniors and Riley Mulvey and Evan Bronze. Evan's a 5th-year senior. Both of those guys have gotten a lot stronger over the last 4 years, and they're not mistake guys. They know what we want to do. They've been here. You know, this is Evan's 2nd year. Owen's, of course, been here. Or Riley's been here longer than that. But you know, I love those guys, and quite frankly, in many ways, wish I could play them more. They're going to play. How much? I don't know. But this is probably the deepest team we've had.
You lose Asante, you lose Patrick, you lose Tony, and then Ben as well. Is there anything about this team that maybe it won't be able to do as well as last year's team did, or how do you replace such a broad base of skill there?
You know, Ben averaged 16 points a game. You know, he was a scoring front court guy, so you got to find scoring in some capacity. You know, he and Patrick also there. You know, I think, you know, we've addressed that. You know, both with the guys that are coming back as sophomores and with the portal and with our freshmen. You know, so we sort of envisioned that being a necessity, and we took care of that. You know, in terms of the backcourt with you know, Josh Dix and being as special as he is, and then we can swing Payton back there. Price is obviously going to play back there. Brock is going to a whole nother level. We addressed the departure of Tony with Drew, so I think we're fine.
See from Tajdo, how do you see him fit into next year?
Toughest thing for Chris is he's so conscientious. He's such an incredibly hard worker. He's way too hard on himself. And so that has been my biggest challenge with him, which is a unique challenge, but you know, it happens. He's such a perfectionist, and as a freshman who was, you know, for the first time in a long time in a completely English-speaking environment, is now in a position to try to understand what we're doing and then compete for playing time. And I'm just hopeful that he doesn't beat himself up every time he misses a shot or makes a mistake, because you know, he's been doing that. So the coaches have been really, really positive and patient with him, because we love him and we respect his work ethic, his intensity level, and that's a talent. You know, that's an underestimated talent. Hard work, physicality, intensity level on every possession. Not everybody does that, and he does.
He's also still pretty new to basketball, and he's kind of been all over the map. I mean, what have you kind of told him entering his first year about what college basketball is actually going to be like? And now that he's kind of at a consistent spot rather than kind of going all over the globe.
I think it's the first time he's really watched a lot of film of himself and of everybody else, and just understanding that if I make a teaching point on the film to Owen, it's also for you. It's not just when I talk to you. And you're right. You know, we went from speaking the dialect back home to going to Montreal, where it's English and French. Then he ends up in Mexico City where it's Spanish. And now he's here where it's all English. So he's doing really well considering, but I think you're going to see a projection there because of how serious he is about his craft that will be impressive.
Coach, Josh Dix's skill set, will we see him somewhere at point guard, or is that?
You will. You will. He's so good off the ball, and he's a really good defender. So he's going to be guarding that wing guy that, from 6'4" to 6'7". He's really good there. But I love his versatility and the ability to move him to the one spot. And then, you put somebody like Price alongside of him. That's a big team, and that's a lot of shooting.
It seems like just from what I've seen, Tristan still watching other players really gravitate too. How did you first kind of meet him and how did that relationship?
Yeah, so Tristan moved to town a few years back, and it was still in the sort of at the end, but still playing professionally. So he's home in the summer. They would go somewhere in the winter and play. So he started working out with Patrick, then he started working out with our other guys, and then he started inviting a lot of the players out to Court 45, where Daryl Moore's operation is. And those guys, in the spring would get hellacious runs there, and he would organize it. And then he was doing a lot of the training, and then we had an opening and interviewed him, and he was spectacular. And he interviewed with our administration, and everybody loves him. I mean, everybody that meets Tristan is impressed with him and his personality, his energy level, and he's really good at that component, but he's also, the total package. I mean, he's now allowed by rule to be a recruiter, and he's done a great job there.
Something that is heard a lot on the recruiting trail, or I guess on the 3SSB circuit, was how good of a shooter Cooper Koch was. But I guess I went out and saw him this last year at his high school, and he seemed like a 3-level scorer. So
he's more than a lot of times when guys are great shooters, that's what they're called. He's a shooter, and he, in what you were referring to, the 3SSB circuit, he is one of the. I think he was maybe the best shooter statistically of all of those teams, which is incredible when you think about it. I mean, I remember I went to see him out west, and he 8 threes in a row, that kind of thing. And you remember he's 6'8", so he can score inside. He does offensive rebound. He can post up. So he is a 3-level scorer. And he had surgery this summer, so he's done amazingly well coming back from that. I was blown away that he was able to maintain the intensity level that he has from the minute he came back. He was out for 6 weeks. 6 weeks in one day, he was sprinting the floor and competing.
In your reviewing of film of Thelwell before he came here, what did you see from him, like in the conference tournament or down the stretch in the games that mattered the most?
I go back. We watched those games that you're talking about, but you look at that kid, and when you're the all-time winningest player in a program's history, that's an incredible statement. I mean, they won 27 games last year, and he was the point guard. So now you're watching. Okay, first of all, how do they play? How does he fit? They ran a few more sets. We were a little more free-flowing, but he clearly had the athleticism to play fast. Does he make plays for other people? Does he engineer victory? And he did that, and he shot the ball well enough. I think he was like a little over 34% from three-point range. And he fared pretty well against the Power 5 teams that were on the schedule.
What's the next step for Payton as he continues to evolve?
Yeah, I think for Payton, we all have an expectation. When your best player comes back and he led the league and made threes, he's going to make more threes. He's going to get more rebounds. I mean, the thing that I've been impressed with, Pat, is, you look, he was a really good rebounder last year. He's a really special offensive rebounder. And a lot of shooters just don't do that. They hang around on the perimeter, and that's that. Throw me the ball, and I'll shoot it in the hole for you. He does that, but he's done more off the dribble. He's done more passing to open people and reading situations, which is what you would expect from a senior. Think about him. He's freshman year, he played a lot. He's on a Big Ten championship team. Sophomore year, he was rookie of the year in the league. Last year, led the league in made threes. Was an all-league player. So now I think, how do you go from being a second or third team all-league player to first team? Obviously it's consistency of effort and performance, and nobody's going to work harder.
Looking back on last season, what was this team's biggest weakness and what's been done to address that this offseason?
I thought last year's team was impressive in a lot of ways. We had a lot of different guys that could score. We competed. We lost a couple games that we didn't close. A couple that stand out in my mind. If we won, you always go back. If we'd have just won that, we should have won that game. We didn't. If we did, we'd have been in the NCAA tournament. So that's how close I think we were.
So what are your expectations from this team now, especially in the expanded Big Ten this year?
Yeah, we expect to be really good. We expect to win a lot of games. We expect to go to the NCAA tournament. We expect to contend night in and night out in a very difficult league. It's unique in the sense that, a lot of coaches really don't know a lot about the other teams, especially the ones that have 8 or 9 new players. So we'll get into it and we'll figure it out.
What does Carter Kingsbury bring to the program?
Veteran guy that physically is capable of playing more than one position. Really good three-point shooter, but really tough guy and smart.
Frank, you had mentioned on Big Ten Network that you feel like this is your deepest game. I'm just kind of curious, is that in terms of how many guys are capable of playing? Is it versatility? Is it different ways
Both.
to play?
And I think that's the key. You're right. I mean, I legitimately have 13 guys I feel comfortable playing. And playing a number of them in different positions and relying on them to be productive in those different positions because they're smart and they've been around. There's a little bit of a learning curve with our new guys, the 2 freshmen and 2 transfers. But everybody else has been here. So I feel very comfortable. You're in a late game situation. You've got to run a press attack. You don't have a timeout. You run a side OB. You run in your late game package. All of those guys can run that effectively without having to take a timeout and explain it over and over.
Will you get to see Butler in person this
Yeah.
year?
I will try as best I can. It's going to be hard. I think there's one game around Thanksgiving that I might be able to get to that I know for sure. It's hard. It's a 5-hour and 20-minute drive. But I'll do what I can.
We talk about closing out games. What's key to doing that, especially with the younger guys on this team?
Well, you can't make mistakes, and you got to execute. So if you're running sets, if you're running out of bounds plays, if you're protecting a lead, you can't turn it over. You got to make sure the right people are getting fouled. If you're fouling them, you're fouling the right people. No time and score. Know if you're in the bonus, if they're in the bonus, if you're in the double bonus or not. You have timeouts left. So, everybody thinks, if you're 10 and 20 or 20 and 10, one team's good, one team stinks. Fine line. You got to win 5-point games, 2-possession games. And that comes down to intellect.
All right, thanks, Coach.
Appreciate it, guys. Yeah.
Thanks, sir. All right, well, players down on the court,